think we have enough. I know some people are going to be straggling in. So I know, y'all, we made it to Covington. We're moving on up in life, huh? I don't know about y'all, but I feel like I should have my pinky out. No, so hey, Happy New Year, y'all. Happy New Year. I know it's been a while since I've seen you guys back in December for the meetups then. My name is Courtney Fricke. I'm the founder and the runner for the REIA here, the Northshore REIA. I want to get you guys a few announcements. Look, so this is a new space to me. So I'm gonna get my feelings for it and kind of get some things. You know, maybe we'll start playing with some projectors and some screens and stuff. But if you've been around me for a little bit, I'm not a lot of. I don't have a lot of flair. I like meat and potatoes. All right, you can keep the garnish. So a few things. January 21st, this next coming Tuesday in SLIDELL. So we do 2 to 3 meetups for Northshore REIA. If you're new here, I see some new faces. The one constant in these meetings is typically me. So, but a lot of moving parts with you guys. So I see some new faces. So this is going to be our new meeting space for the main meetings that happen on the second Tuesday of every month. And we do 2 to 3 meetups on the North Shore. They're all free thanks to some local sponsors, and I'll go over those in a little bit. But so we've got 2 important dates coming up. The next meetup for this month is January 21st. That's going to be in SLIDELL, and that's a lunch and learn. It's our Real Estate Investing 101 class. It's a 12-month class. You can jump in at any time, but it's a lot of 101 basics, introductory. Like this one's going to be on the introduction to investing in real estate. I know that seems very general. It's going to be a lot of the why should you invest in real estate. Why is investing in real estate something that you should be considering, and depending on, on your path toward your personal goals and whatnot. But we have ones coming out that's going to be like introduction to flipping, introduction to being a landlord, introduction to wholesaling, introduction, different things, all the way down to like, how do you fund these deals, and how do you decide what exit strategy to use, things along those lines. We end the year in a mastermind where we sit around the table and we say, hey, my name's Courtney, this is what market I work in, this is what I'm currently doing, and this is something I'm currently trying to figure out, and this is something I'm currently struggling with in my business, trying to figure out type thing. Like, hey, I'm trying to get my first deal because I can't get the funding, or I'm trying to figure out how to grow my real estate portfolio type thing. And so then as a room, we work through and we try to come together as a coming together the minds. And so I know a lot of people enjoyed that last year. So that happens every month, the Real Estate Investing 101, but that's in SLIDELL, and it's during lunchtime, okay? You can get all this information on our website. The next one is next month's main meeting, which will be here, is February 11th. Quest IRA. Any of you guys ever heard of Quest Trust Company or Quest IRA? A few of you guys? I'm excited for the lineup for this year. So I'm almost completely done with lining up all the speakers for 2020. And as you guys know, usually what we do is we want it to be where this room is, where we can learn about real estate, how we can do business, and how we can take action, rather than saying $9.97, you can learn how to go learn more about real estate type stuff, rather than actually get deals and things. The goal is to guard us from stuff like that, and to bring in some whether they're local or regional speakers, or this year I have a few speakers coming from out of town, which is they're coming from out of town not to sell you anything, but I've been reaching out to my network, and I'm excited about some of the people I'm bringing in. Quest IRA, they are actually one of our sponsors for the year. They are, how many of you guys know, how many of you guys ever heard of what's called a self-directed IRA? Heard of it? Okay. If you are lacking funding, or you're wanting more funding for your deals, this would be a great one to attend, because they're going to come talk about self-directed IRAs. If you ever have any interest on being a lender, or you're like saying, hey, I could really use access to private capital, and I'd want to use this as an education source for you, because maybe you have people in your sphere of influence who have a high earning W-2, you know, they have a good paying job, and they have all this money sitting in the stock market, but they've been thinking about getting in real estate, or like a family member for instance, this could be a good opportunity to show us like as an education for that, right? So we have that. So that's going to be next month. Some other speakers I have lined up. We have Daniel Chad Moore out of the DFW area. He's with Propelio. If you guys have heard of Propelio, they're an online software for real estate investors. Daniel is one of the founders for that. This guy is an absolute beast when it comes to real estate investing. There's so many. He's done $1 million flips. He's worked pre-foreclosures. He's been all over the board. Guy's very so he's a wealth of knowledge that I've learned from. So he's going to be coming, I believe, in March. We've got, for those of you guys know, the Mississippi Boys, Adam Johnson and Britt Moreno. They'll be coming later on in the year, but Adam's father, Mr. Leon, a lot of you guys met the Mississippi Boys and Mr. Leon last year. Mr. Leon's going to be speaking in April on discounted. He does discounted rent, and it helps him to be able. I think he's managing over 50 rental properties right now by himself, and it helps him to be able to have less of a headache with managing those rentals. It's just a strategy that he has. We've got. Any of you guys ever heard of Pace Morby or Jamil with Keegley? If any of you guys are online, know about these people. They're out of the Phoenix, Arizona market. Jamil is with Keegley. Jamil runs Keegley, which does 100 real estate transactions a month. Real estate investing transactions a month. He's in 5, I believe Keegley's in 5 markets. He has created a monster of a company. It's super respectable. So not only is he, not only are they coming in for a creative financing intensive, but they're also, I'm going to be posting a networking pop-up with them in March. And it's probably going to be more so in the New Orleans area, just because that's where the event's going to be, the seminar is going to be. So, but Pace Morby is with him. Pace Morby is, guy kills it with, doing subject twos, things like that. So Phoenix is a very, very competitive market, and there's a handful of guys in that market who are multi-millionaires through real estate investing, and they've learned the key of working together rather than against each other. And so that's actually what they're going to come out and speak on, is how to be collaborative in a competitive market. Truth be told, we're not in a very competitive market like Phoenix, but if some of you guys are like, Courtney, I can't find a deal at the auctions, or like, there's like, every time I go talk to a seller, you've already talked to them, Courtney. I'm like, yes, I have. But no, stuff like that, right? Where it's one of those things where some of you guys may feel that it gets a little, you feel another investor making offers or whatnot, right? But I'm a firm believer that we're not going to a pool with a 5-gallon bucket, but we're more so going to the ocean with a soup bowl. There's a lot more out there for all of us. And I know I've done deals with a lot of you guys in this room. It's one of those things where there's enough for us to go around. There's enough people for us to help, for us to go around with, right? All right, so those are just a few announcements, right? 2 dates to be have on your radar. So this is a free meetup. So guys, 2 to 3 times a month. Once a quarter, we'll be in Tangipahoa Parish doing a networking mixer there. I'll probably throw in some education in that one this year. So this is going to be our main space. So we'll figure it out. We'll make it home. All right. So these meetups are free thanks to some local sponsors, and the sponsors changed for the calendar year. So we actually kind of have a new lineup. Last year, you guys probably were like, we know what she's about to say, and she's going to name off the sponsors. So the sponsor tables are going to be out here. I'm looking forward to making that more interactive, because these sponsors are people who I stand behind. These are people that a lot of times you guys call, you're like, hey, Courtney, I'm looking for X, Y, Z. So these are ones that I'd recommend. You can find their cards out there on the table. And I know I need to get a stack for like each one of them, because the cards go. And so I know you guys are at least grabbing the cards. So, that's the goal, is to where you guys can get in here, network with like-minded people, get closer to your goals, And I'm thankful for these sponsors who join along for the year. So just to name a few of them in this room that we have. So we've got Mia Rogers. She's a local realtor here on the front. I saw that market report, by the way, I'll put online. So she's going to be the one who, whenever we put market reports online, she's the one who provides them. So you kind of see the number, the data, and the trends from what's going on in the market. Mia Rogers is an investor, but also she's also a realtor. And so I know that that's not always the case. So if you've got bad blood with realtors, cut it out. No, it's one of those things where I've got a realtor on my team. I love using them. I think they're a vital part. It's just a natural part of the industry. And so there's actually a way that you can use them to your benefit, right? To where you guys can both benefit to each other and coexist. And so finding one that understands, especially if you're looking for investment properties, getting one that understands what that means. And so I try to do my best to get in front of realtors to help educate for the ones who struggle with what that means, right? So Mia, she's got experience. Definitely, we've got Mr. Bob Norton right here. If you get frustrated with your CPA, I'm going to recommend him because I think I went through 4 CPAs before I found Bob because he's real estate specific. And when I didn't have to explain to him what wholesaling was, I was like, sold. Or one of my creative deals, I didn't have to explain the breakdown of one of my complicated deals to him. That was really helpful because I felt like I was constantly educating my CPA. And I'm like, this doesn't give me confidence. Right? I'm like, let's hope we don't miss something. So let's see who else we got in here. Justin Harris isn't here, but he's a land wholesaler. If you guys are marketing and you come across land leads, Justin's someone that you want to get his information because I've done deals with Justin whenever I had land leads that I couldn't do something with. We've got Mr. Wayne Sanji in the back row. There you go, wave your hand. Mr. Wayne Sanji with Wayne Sanji Associates. He's a broker, but he's also a property management company for the North Shore and the South Shore. So for those of you who are landlords who are like, hey, the management part scares me, there's definitely one to check out. We've got Christina Richards. She is a lender with Loan Depot. I know I've personally sent people to her, and she's doing a great job right now killing it with people who are wanting to house hack, where you want to buy a property and live in one side and rent out the other. I'm not kidding, there's multiple people in this room that she's helped and get them a great loan and get them started when they thought, oh, it might be 2 years before I can do that, and the next thing you know, it's like, it was a shorter time period because she was able to help. So we've got Florida Lead Title. They're based out of Covington. I think they're opening a SLIDELL office soon, but they're in like 5-6 locations. Hammond, the South Shore, Baton Rouge. I swear every time I go in the office, they're training another attorney to open up another office. So Jared Miguez and John Stevens with Florida Lead, they're great. And then we've got, because I'm going to always keep forgetting, let's see, we've got, you know what? I was just about done. My last one is my company. So, because that's what I always forget, right? Deep Roots Property Solutions, guys. If you are looking for off-market deals, there is a jar out front. If you're not on my buyer's list, if you want to put your card in there. So a lot of times, so I do a lot of marketing for the North Shore, and whenever I come across a deal that I'm either too busy or not interested, doesn't fit my criteria or whatever it may be, to either hold as a rental or flip, I then wholesale it. So if you don't know what wholesaling is simply just finding these off-market, typically off-market properties at a discount, and then you can sell your position, your rights in the contract to someone else. So typically it's a flip to another investor, right? So I do a ton of those on the North Shore. So if you're looking for deals on the North Shore, whether they're buy and hold, whether they're flips, whether it's land, commercial development opportunities, yeah, we're working on a 43 house package right now. That one is I'm worried about the gray hairs with that one, right? Think about buying one house. Imagine, spread out. I mean, things like that, right? So if you're interested in stuff like that, make sure we get your card out there. Come, you can grab my cards out on the table. Sometimes I don't get to interact with a lot of y'all. Grab my card on the table. But the other thing with Deep Roots Property Solutions, guys, we are buyers. Our goal is to buy at least 6 flips this year. That's like our minimum baseline. So if you do market, on market, off market, whatever, we're looking for flips on the North Shore. We do have a criteria for that. So if you want to get with me on what that looks like, make sure you know we've got capital. We want to use it. We want to buy. Okay. All right. I think that's about it. Last thing. Any guys have a deal? Anyone have an on-market, off-market deal? Maybe a needs or a wants. Like, hey, I need a referral for this. I want some input on this. This is a great time to do that. Anyone? Chirp, chirp. Kevin.
Kevin Landry, actually don't have a deal, but been trying to lock up a flip in Mandeville and a couple of duplexes near UNO on the South Shore. And I've got a vacancy on my fourplex also, if anyone was interested in house hacking, and that'd be a good opportunity to go and take a look at it.
So you're saying you don't have an available deal to sign, except for like your fourplex, you might be willing to sell that or something like that?
Right, if somebody was looking for it's a fourplex in Covington, and one of the units is open right now. The other 3 are all rented out, so if somebody was looking to house hack on a fourplex, then it might be a good opportunity.
Sure thing. Good. Anything? So Kevin's one of the wholesalers in our region. If you are a wholesaler, meaning someone that markets to properties that are typically off market, can you go ahead and stand up? Do you mind going ahead and stand up if you're a wholesaler? Kevin, you mind standing up too? So if you are a cash buyer, these are some people you want to meet. We've got, I know Sharon, you're a realtor, but you also do that. We've got Devin in the back, and then we've got Kevin over here. So if you're a cash buyer, or if you're a realtor with cash buyers, these are people that you want to meet, okay? My company is another one, but also I'm a cash buyer, but I know you guys know that, to be sending deals my way if you got some. All right, any other haves or needs or wants?
I have a kind of a special situation. Aren't they all special?
Right.
It's actually an acquaintance of mine that is disabled. She is in this program with Veterans of America. So as opposed to Section 8, Veterans of America will sign a lease and guarantee her rent for her. So all you have to do is okay her. I need $900 a month, 1 bedroom, pretty much anywhere on the South Shore. So she's going to be a long-term tenant, 1 person, no kids, no pets, no drugs, no drama. She would be like a great tenant if you have them.
Yeah, so if I know we have property managers and realtors and different things like that in this room, landlords. If you have either an inkling that you might know something, get with her. Anyone else? Yeah.
I have a friend that's looking for a rental, my daughter's friend, between a 3-2 on the North Shore, in Covington, SLIDELL, but not Hammond, and they're willing to pay $1,000 to $1,500. So if anybody has a rental, they need it like in 2 weeks, and for 6 months to a year. If anybody has them.
Sure. Yes.
Have a 3-bedroom, 1 bath uptown, near on Carrollton near Notre Dame Seminary. It's going for $1,650 a month, but we can reduce it. Fully renovated, stainless steel appliances.
That upstairs one, right?
Yep. Upstairs.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah. Anyone else?
Anybody in the Hammond area have 2-bed, 2-bath, right off of 190 and 55?
Okay, is this a
Duplex.
is it a rental? Is this a
It's a rental.
Okay, so okay. Is it one of the units or both the units or?
Both units are vacant. They're for $1,150 right now. It's 103 Tina Drive.
Okay.
Brand new, so everything's
So new construction?
new.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Speaking of Hammond, I have a deal. I'm so glad I thought about this. I have a deal. I locked it up this morning. So this is, see, when I don't read my notes, I forget to go over important items like I have a deal. So in Hammond, I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,100 square feet home. It's in I would say a transitioning neighborhood. There's definitely some transitioning happening, coming from a few streets over. It's near downtown Hammond area, the Iowa Addition neighborhood, if you know what I'm talking about. It's on South Chestnut Street. It's an older home, and it's been a low-grade rental, meaning it's got paneling on the walls, things like that, right? So asking $52,000 in its current condition. It can be rented, but you're definitely going to be getting lower end of the market, stuff like that. It's been rented for $750, so $750 a month. It is got city utilities. It's in a preferred flood zone, and it's not too far from the high school, downtown area, and the university is not very far. I know for a fact. So I own the rentals right next door. Those might also be up for sale. If we might work that out. It's a 2-house package. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. I'm currently in the middle of turnovers, which is why it might be for sale, right? So if that's something that interests you, come get with me. The asking price is $52,000. You definitely, it's something that you could, like for example, do a burr on. And the good thing is in the neighborhood, there's a lot of movement going on in the neighborhood. So I'm interested to see like when appraisals, whenever that's happening in the neighborhood, I always am interested in what appraisals do. But yeah, all right, well, excellent. So I'm gonna not hold you any longer.
What's a burr?
A burr, thank you. Sometimes I get bad at it. Sometimes I get bad at this. So a burr is you buy it with cash, you renovate it, you rent it out, and then you refinance it. Typically the bank may make you wait like 6 months. And so let's just say, for example, you buy a property for $100,000, you put $10,000 into renovating it. That would be a light rehab, okay? So you have 110 into it. You get the tenant in there, you rent it out. The bank says we need 6 months to see, just to let it, what they call season. At that time, they go ahead and they appraise it, and it comes back worth 170. So then you can pull out a certain percentage of that. Sometimes it's 75, sometimes it's 70 to 80%, depending on what bank you're working with. So whoever's quick with math, 70% of, what number did I say?
530.
Yeah, and so, okay, if you're only into 110, you then have $20,000 you can then put into your pocket or put back into the property. You can, if you're smart, maybe put into your cash reserves for the rental, right? So it's a way for you to, now, that is dependent on you getting it at a good price, right? Right? A $170,000 house, that only needs $10,000, where you got it for $100,000. You're like, where? Sign up for that table, I'll tell you where, right? All these off-market deals, you can even find them at auctions, you can even find them through a realtor. It's just the concept of taking the same, because like me, hey, I only have access to $150,000. How can I keep reusing it? Cash is king when you're making offers, so use that line of credit or that cash to make an offer. Then you have it in the property for, say, 6 months. Then you refinance it. You need to be lendable, meaning the bank is wanting to lend on you. Not everyone's lendable. In that sense, so then you can talk with a lender beforehand, so then you can plan to get that mortgage, so say a 30-year mortgage on the property, and then when you refinance, you get that money back out. And then it's like wash and repeat, rinse, wash and repeat. So it's, you buy with cash, you renovate it, you rent it out, you refinance it, and then the last R is repeat. Got it? Good question.
I like it.
So, Bigger Pockets came up with that. They didn't come up with the concept and just totally, but they're the ones who turned it. If you don't know what Bigger Pockets is, it's a really great website, great forums, really great podcast. But they also have a good book on it. It's called Bird. David Green, I think, wrote it, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
David Green or Brandon Turner?
Brandon Turner's the one who coined it, but David Green's the one who wrote the book. So, look at you guys getting technical. You're like, hold on. Yeah.
If you do a commercial loan, chances are they won't make you wait 6 months.
Yeah, right. Like,
Just do it.
yeah, so it just depends on your loan products, right? So figuring out what loan products are out there, because hey, if you don't have to wait 6 months, what does that mean? You can then, you can build your rental portfolio a little bit quicker, right?
25% loan to value?
So it just depends what products the lenders have. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and take, so I know we got to find out who's a little bit of the people in the room. So we're going to spend the next 30 minutes networking. So if you heard something from someone that you're like, hey, that's a deal I want to go find out about, maybe you're like, hey, I have information for that rental need or whatever. Maybe if you want to go check out the sponsored table, I think the bathrooms are right over here. We've got some coffee and water. Yeah, so if you guys want to take the next 30 minutes, if you are shy, please try to talk to at least one person. If you're not shy, please talk to 3 people. Okay? All right, I'll pull you guys back in when it's time.
Thank you.
get started? All right. It's like herding cats. No, I'm just kidding. You want to go ahead and grab a seat? You don't have to see this, but if you're a numbers person, this ain't church, you can come to the front. If you're a numbers person, if you can't see this, I'm going to do my best to write as big as possible and, legible and stuff like that. But what I plan on doing is, first of all, it's not usually a one show act here. I usually just facilitate these. Usually I'm introducing the speakers and letting them get going. But it's been a while since at the main meeting. I have since the main meeting that I've shared. I think it's actually been about 2 years. Other than just facilitating questions, and so what I plan to do tonight is, you know what? It's 2020. How many of you guys have written out some goals for this year? A few of you guys are like, We're on to 2020, right? Goals, right? You're like, I got that far. I'm very big into goal setting. So I can geek out over that, right? I love it because there's a level that I'm just really ambitious when it comes to, hey, there's a lot that I want to do. So writing it down helps it. I like to write it down and make it visible. So with it being 2020, we all joke about the 2020 hindsight, right? And so the first thing that came to mind for me is when thinking about what to talk about is, I know a lot of you guys want to hear breakdowns and case studies of actual deals done on the North Shore. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to go over 3 deals. There are 3 different types of deals, different types of strategies for the most part. And I'm going to break it down. If you've got questions, ask them. I'm going to tell you where I found the deals. I'm going to tell you how I funded them. I'm going to tell you all the numbers, okay? So I'm going to do my best to write that out on here. And then, so if you got questions, let me know. I want to teach you, I want to at least share with you the lessons I learned with these deals. 2020 is hindsight, right? When you're looking back, you can kind of see a little bit clearer, like, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that, right? Yet it happens, right? What I don't want is maybe a lot of times with education, and this being an educational meetup, it's networking and education, it's really easy to learn, and all of a sudden your brain becomes like this cobweb library. You know what I'm talking about? That analysis paralysis, and all of a sudden you're like, I've attended the seminars, Courtney, I've read the books, I've listened to the podcast, and I've attended these meetings. But maybe I haven't put an offer in a house. Or maybe I haven't looked at some properties or, taken that first step, right? So, and that's what I want to encourage you. If you do anything in 2020 is that you take imperfect action. I fall prey to wanting to have more control and be more, have all my ducks lined up. There's a level that you should, right? Especially when you're spending money or anything like that, you should, there's due diligence, right? I'm not saying just go be reckless. But sometimes, what did I hear the other day? Adam said this. He said, I wish I had where I wrote this down, but he said something like, if you have to be in control of everything, you're going too slow. Or if you're going too slow, it's because you want to be in control of everything. So there's got to be a level of a percentage that it's like it's going to fall where it is, right? So for 2020, I want to encourage you guys to take that imperfect action, and whatever your goal is, if it's to do your first deal, or it's to do your 20th deal, or to do your 500th deal. There are people in this room who've done hundreds of deals. For a fact, there's more than one person in this room. You didn't know you were sitting next to, huh? Quiet ones, missed out. No, in all reality, in this room, we've got people all across the board. So, let's talk about some deals. Let's talk about some lessons. So, I want to go through This is the second flip I ever bought. The first flip I bought was a live-in flip, where I bought it to move into it. I fixed it up about 90% of the way, moved into it, but I haven't sold it yet. I plan on selling it this year. I'm just waiting to find the new thing to move into, right? So I don't, put myself on the curb. So that one, let's not go over that one because that one's not done. This was my first real flip. I left my career in property management in 2017. I managed a marina that was owned by an apartment complex company. So it was like I was doing leases, collecting rent, and evicting, but just with boats. So that's fun. There's no curb to put a boat on, right? So I put in my 2 weeks notice there, and within 2 weeks, I bought a vehicle and I bought a house to flip. And I don't necessarily always recommend what I did, but because it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, it's just me and the dog. I'm highly employable. I was in management then. I was making great strides for the company. So I was like, you know what, why not now? I don't have a lot of responsibilities in the sense of like, I was living in a property that I didn't have a mortgage on. I had paid off property, so it wasn't like I had all these bills, right? So I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna take the risk, now is the time because of my responsibilities were low. And so, hey, if I stumbled and mess up, I could just go get another job. And there wasn't a lot of people counting on me. Does that make sense? So I left the job, and within 2 weeks, I feel like I did something else too. Anyway, it was this one whole thing where I was like, I left my career, bought a car, and bought a house. It's almost like a quarter-life crisis. So Addis Street was also the first time I came across a property that was also called Addis Boulevard. And so every time I went to go do anything paperwork, while they were like, which address? I was like, it's both. Everywhere I come across, it's both. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house, around 650 square feet. And it was in SLIDELL. It was originally on the lot, it was a mobile home. They built a carport over the mobile home, and right next to it, they then built a house. The reason why I went after this one was 20,000 buckaroos. I was like, I got that. I can work with that. How many of you guys are like, 20,000 is a lot more workable than like $140,000, right? And so I said, you know what? I'm going, so it was a $20,000 deal, so it's a cheap house, right? By the way, the house, the 1-bedroom, 1-bath house, was about 9 years old, relatively new. How did I find it? Let's see. I found it on Craigslist. I have bought multiple properties off of social media. I have not clicked all of them off the boxes yet. I still need to buy off of Instagram. I'm not even on Snapchat, but apparently I need to buy off of there too, right? But I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. I bought off of Facebook buy and sell trade groups in Craigslist. It was on Craigslist. It didn't have a picture. It just stated, cheap house for sale in SLIDELL. So I responded to it. It had been posted, I think, for a while. Long story short, I went and walked it, the property, and I could see there was some termite damage, a little bit. It was a hole about that big. We laugh because it's, a hole that big. But I was like, it's just that big. They were asking $20,000. What it was is, so the motivation for this situation, so I bought this without a realtor. I bought this direct from seller. The seller lived on the Gulf Coast, and so was not living in the house anymore. And her son was living in the property whenever he was not being a truck driver, and he was kind of like up to no good. So she kind of wanted to remove the temptation of this house, right? Fun fact, the back part of the house, next door to the house had some raw land that the neighbor, so the neighboring lot was raw. And I was walking the property, and all, through the slits of the fence, I could see, all this debris and trash. So I climbed over the fence and I looked, and he's like, I'm not going to say the expletive, but he's like, that's my girlfriend graveyard. I was like, what? But every time he broke with a girl, he threw all of her stuff over there. And so there was literally mattresses, clothes. I was like, interesting. You're a catch. I'm like, let's see, about I want to say it was like $65,000 to $70,000 is what fixed up I figured it could go for. Don't ask me what I looked at because I can't really remember a whole lot, but I know, I want to say that's what was really hard is it's a quirky property. Does anyone know why it's a quirky property? Like why it would be hard to do some comparables?
There's not very many one bedrooms in that house.
Bingo. Dean's correct. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. What are usually 1 bedrooms, 1 bath? Like condos and stuff, right? So like you can't compare this to a condo, right? It's a standalone house. So, what's hard is you can't go apples to apples. It was on a slab. You know, you don't want to compare it to stuff that's raised up. You don't want to compare a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 650 square foot house to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that's 1,200 square feet. Like it's just, there's too many plus and minuses there, right? So when I call something quirky, it's usually there's less buyers for it. So not a lot of people, they don't want a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, right? Where's the guest or the kid's gonna stay, right? The husband when you're upset with them, right? Like, I don't know. So when it's quirky, I'll get into that in a second, but one of the biggest lessons I learned was to not buy a quirky property. So I ended up buying for $20,000, and the way that I funded it was the house that I was living in I had owned outright, so I got a home equity line of credit. A home equity line of credit, it's also known as a HELOC, H-E-L-O-C, home equity line of credit. What it is it says, hey, I have this house that I own outright in cash, paid for cash, own it outright, whatever that looks like, or maybe you paid down the mortgage, whatever. So that home equity line of credit, it's a bank product that allows you to basically get a line of credit against the equity in the home. You can't use 100% of it, but some banks offer up to, I think, 90%. Valerie, what's up?
Did you get your line of credit before you quit your job?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted you to say that to everybody else.
Excellent point. When I was considering quitting my job, one of the reasons I don't recommend quitting your job right away is, one, a lot of people have more responsibilities than I did, right? More people counting on you, more expenses. But the other thing was, when I did it, I talked with a CPA, I talked with lenders. I talked with multiple people before I made that decision. Because even to I'm still not fully lendable from a bank because I've been self-employed for a few years, because they want to see X, Y, Z. And so I got this secured before I left my job so that I had that available. Excellent point to me. If I would have been afterwards like, I want to use the equity in my house, the bank would have been like, sorry, can you get someone to co-sign? Like, basically. Excellent point. So I bought it through Craigslist, and I did not get a home inspection on it. Should have done that. Why? It's a few $100. I get that, but you're tripping over pennies. What is the saying? You're tripping over dollars to save pennies. I should have leveraged someone else's experience because I was very, I've done some things, but I was more inexperienced than not, right? So I should have done that. It ended up taking, so that, remember that little small hole in the wall? I did a termite inspection. They were not active, but they ate everything already. 3 out of the 4 exterior walls, they moved it. 3 out of the 4 exterior walls and some of the trusses had to be, it's like literally I had to start, it doubled my renovation cost. A little bit of look.
If you can see a hole from termites, the house has already been.
Yes, when you can see a hole, very true. You want to know what caused it? When they DIYers, buyer beware. If you know anyone who's doing, like if you find the seller who did like projects themselves, like what all did you do? Tell me everything you did, because that's everything I have to redo. Like, right? I want to know what all you touched. They built the carport. So originally it was a mobile home on the property, and when I bought it, it had a mobile home. And then they built actually a very nice carport over this mobile home. And then next to it, they built the house. But because they did not get the roof alignment right, and they didn't do the flashing right, that's what caused the water. And they didn't put any gutters on the house either.
Termites, they love that.
Termites love that. Water and wood. Moisture and wood. They love that. Alright, so I get this property, I'm like, gung-ho, I am a bona fide flipper, right? I get working on it, I'm listening to Bigger Pockets. It turns into a 6-month rehab because of the termites, little darn.
Should've
You know
posted
what?
that on Bigger Pockets, you could've got some money back.
I know, right? I'm pretty sure I posted on Bigger Pockets like the deal analyzing, but so not only was it alarm, like did my rehab double, but the timeline doubled, right? Also, it had T111 on the exterior. If you know what T111 is, anyone know what T111 is? It's cheap wood siding. It's like the cheapest wood siding. Termite food. Yeah. It's like a particle board siding. Look, Google T111. You have seen it at some point because someone's been like a cheapskate at some point, right?
There's some in bullshit.
There's some bullshit. There's a cheapskate somewhere, right? So T111, it was okay. Am I gonna patch up the wood siding, or am I gonna and have to repaint it, or am I going to replace it? Also, fun fact, I left my job and I said, you know what? I'm going to be a landlord first. And then this project turned into a flip. That's also been the fun part. Because I went into it, I was like, hey, I'm going to hold this long term, right? That's what I was thinking. Because it could rent, I was like, 600 to around 750 was where I figured the rents were. So I was like, hey, these numbers, $20,000, put in some money. Rehab in closing, y'all, I had to go to my books for this. $34,135. That baby got brand new vinyl siding. It got tile throughout, and they were smokers. So we also got a lot of paint, and we had to do a lot of work. Let's see. I had to update the new sewage treatment system. Guess what? We have equipment in my family, and our skidster, so a dingo, found the old system. It was almost really bad, but we called before it went too far in, and you don't want to know what we found when it went, the machine didn't get too far. We had to tear down one of the pump shed. We had to demo the mobile home. We could not pull it out because of the way the lock was. We couldn't pull it out, so we had to demo it. My dad and I had fun. We have equipment, but I literally was with an axe cutting down and a chainsaw cutting down the roof, and then my dad was playing with his machine toys, trying to roll it like a burrito. I'm like, you do what you want. Go ahead.
So that reno cost is material and equipment and not sweat equity at all.
Some sweat equity. At a certain point, I said, I'm tired of this, and I hired out. I hate painting. Fun fact, I hate painting. First thing I hired out. I learned that from my first project. I hate painting, even though I have a sprayer. So I hired a guy to hang the doors, lay the tile, and paint, get the smoke smell out. I hired them to do the work, a siding company to do the termite repair, so the wood, the carpentry work, and then to put the vinyl siding on. I hired a company to put in the new sewage treatment. So whenever you have private utilities, a well, or a sewage treatment, the old system is a septic system. Generally, in St. Tony Parish, they are getting everyone updated to the sewage treatment system. Generally, those are the ones with the aerator. Every now and then, you're going to have some variations from that. It was around $3,500, but then the guy messed it up, so it ended up being about $4,500 total. So we updated that system. So my dad and I did the sweat equity on tearing down the termite shed. I do not recommend it. I got on top of the shed that was doing this. I was on the top of it, unscrewing it so we could,
Hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer. My father and I were kind of two peas in a pod. Sometimes we shouldn't do some of the things we do. So we tore apart the mobile home, and my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, my only living grandparent, I love him because he was like wanting to come and hang out, right? And he likes tinkering or stuff, and he used to be a crane operator, but he does a lot of welding, and so he had his torch on the back of his truck, and so he came and cut up the actual frame of the mobile home. Learned later it would have been about $1,000 to $2,000 to pay someone to like pretty much demo in place this mobile home because you couldn't pull it out. So when we got to the footers, some of you have heard me tell this story before, but as we got to the footers, and I'm getting, my grandfather's cutting the frame to, have the scrap metal. We're loading him up with the scrap metal so he can go do the thing that he does and, tinkers and all with all that. I start noticing I'm pulling all the footers, at the bottom of the mobile home, and I noticed one that is not like the rest, and my heart stopped. I immediately whistle, tell everyone to stop, go take a whatever break, and I get on the phone immediately with the woman I bought the house from. And I was like, Miss Roxanne, I remember this, Miss Roxanne, please tell me your ex-husband is not buried underneath this mobile home. Because I was looking at a headstone, and with her ex-husband's name on it. So I remember from the closing, and I was like, please tell me he's not there right now. Please tell me you're not buried, because I knew it was bad. Like there was bad blood there. And she's busting up laughing. This 7-year-old woman living on the Gulf Coast, she's like, no honey, when the VA sent us his urn, they actually sent the headstone as well. And so we just threw it underneath the whole house. And I was like, are you sure? I don't want to do 2020 stuff, right? And so, what would have happened? Has anyone ever come across that? Okay, October of this year, I've got Caleb Fitzmaurice. He has a local company that deals with like if there's a suicide in the property. So if there is a handful of situations, so I know that it would have tripled, quadrupled my timeline and the expenses with that. I would have just the legal mess you get into with that. Everything has to stop. So in October, I have Caleb come to talking about the scary side of real estate. So he's going to talk about flood, fire, suicide, things along those that happen in houses. It's crazy. Let's see. So the carport. Once we got the trailer out, we then had to re-plumb and re-pipe all the exterior mechanics. So we ran the electric and the plumbing and the gas lines because it was the original mobile home. Everything was just sitting on top of the ground. That's not going to be good. And we wanted to build an operable carport, so we wanted to put limestone crushed concrete down, right? So we pitted. So we had to trench that. That was sweat equity. But we did pay the, obviously plumbers and electricians like that to run all that. Let's see, we laid down sod. Then we had some issues, so we had to replace the surrounding of the tub surrounding. So I remember doing that. I also don't podcast and drive and multitask because I had my tailgate down. And I was backing into that dang carport and I hit the post of the carport and dented the back of my tailgate truck because I was listening to a podcast and doing this and going dropping off some stuff at the site. Learn my lesson. I don't listen to podcasts in city limits, only on interstate. Lesson learned. We had to service the AC, all that. So you kind of get an idea, all those things that need to be done. Sale price. So first of all, timeline, the rehab, 6 months. Okay? I could have saved money if I didn't, I truly would think I would have saved money and time if I would have not managed that project myself. Because what I traded was sweat equity. I was tripping over dollars to save pennies, but in reality, my inexperience cost me time and money. Sale time, 3 months. Not that bad, but bad. 3 months to sell it. Do the math on that. Around $2,000 is right under $2,000 I lost. Why did I lose roughly $2,000? Originally, this was going to be a rental. And I could rent it for $600 to $750 at a 9-year-old house. Oops, it's in a flood zone. Didn't realize that till afterwards, right? By the way, this was in 2017. I haven't given you guys a time frame for that. So I'm like, okay, I have all my money from this line of credit tied up. Not all of it, but I've got a lot of money tied up in this rental. I'm not lendable by a bank, so I can't do that BRRRR method. Buy it, rehab it, put a tenant in it, and refinance it. The banks were going to touch me for 2 more years. So then I'm like, first of all, I hate flipping, right? I hate projects. at that point, because I was like, you know, I was eating my lunch all the time with this project, right? Just learning hard lessons. 6 months, 3 months to sell. We had listed, I think we listed it in the 70s. And all of a sudden it's like, no one's wanting to buy a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house in SLIDELL in a flood zone. Wonder why. So, there came a point where I had to decide. So before I listed it, originally I was like, one of the things I found out too after I bought it, so actually I'll tell you where this is located. Do you guys know where the Highway 11 bridge is in SLIDELL, the one that you're scared whenever you drive it that you're gonna hit the person next to you? It's a historic bridge, Highway 11. It's literally at the base of that bridge. It's at Addis Boulevard right there. And there's a piling company right in the back of it. And there's a gas, I think the gas people are back there too. This was on the first street. They had a Department of Transportation item line to expand that bridge to I think 4 lanes, and they were going to cut off that first street. Like literally, they had already been in the meetings about it. It was on a I think a 5-year, 10-year plan. It just needed for the money to free up, and it was going to happen because of how many accidents happened on that bridge. You guys know which one I'm talking about. Found out that afterwards. And I'm like, so do I want to have this rental, and then eventually they start doing construction, and then it's going to be hard to rent out, and my tenants are complaining or whatever, and then eventually I might get an offer from the department, and who knows if it's going to match what I have into it, you know what I mean? I was down the line, because rental is a long-term thing, cash flow, and I'm trying to replace the salary here. I'm like, what was I thinking? So I decided strategically to lose $2,000 so I could free up my cash, and I could take a $2,000 seminar that took me 9 months to learn and attend. But does that make sense, you guys?
Yep.
Yes.
I said, you know what? Who wants to lose? And thank God it was only 2,000, right? It could have been 20 or 200. All right, any questions on this one? Real quick, let me tell you some of the pros about it. It was a cheap way to learn. That was one of my thoughts going into. It's a $20,000 house. This will be a good way, something good for me to bite my teeth on, right? What do they say? Carve your teeth up? Cut your teeth. There you go. It was a cheap way to learn on the first project I didn't live in. I learned my criteria to not buy quirky properties that people don't want. And then, it was a sacrifice of a small loss. Some pretty big lessons were learned. Some cons, I used my money. I tied it all up, and I didn't have exit strategies with my money. So I learned the value of what's called other people's money, whether that's a bank, a private lender, anything along those lines. Because when you tie up all of your money, what if a rock star deal came? And I was like, I can't do it because I'm in this, So it's learning how to leverage money. It's called other people's money, whether that's a bank or someone else. So I first had it as a rental. So this would have rented at $600 to $750. For those of you who are landlords, would you like this as a rental? When you're all in, you know what? Yes, you had to do a lot of rehab, but you've got a 9-year-old house. So 1 bedroom, 1 bath. The lady who bought it for me was an investor. Still never met her, but she probably don't know who I am. But she rents it out for $850. I thought $700 max, $750 max, right? I guess the big shed in the back and the carport, maybe did it from them or whatever. But it was a carport for an RV. I learned that I took down a large undertaking for my first deal, a termite house. That's a large, and at first I was actually going to try to rehab the mobile home and try to have two sources of income, but that, when most of the floor and most of it, I might have been able to, but it was a 1970, it was the original one on the property. I would have had to touch every inch of that mobile home. One of the things is, so whenever I was qualifying this property, I didn't realize, I didn't pull into the factors that it's a quirky property. The fact that it was the size of the property, I didn't take into fact the area. It was probably a C minus neighborhood. And then the long days on market, I didn't pull in, factor that in. When I hired a realtor, I took them on recommendation from other people, but when I asked them, you know, how are we going to market this property, he was like, oh, I've already put it in the newspaper, y'all. He literally said the newspaper in 2017. I'm sorry. It was that was about my reaction. And I said, is it on Facebook? I was like, where is it on the internet? He said, it's on my website through the broker. And so like they're not hitting it, right? It was like, it's not on Facebook, like, it's not on. So I got all these recommendations. I was like, I was about to call those people, like, did he list for you in the 80s? Like, did he, like, what is it? Because it was one of those things where it was like, I'm a millennial, but I'm not always that type of millennial. Like, technology's, like, it's a struggle for me to have the live stream sometimes. But, like, I know that everyone's on Facebook looking at stuff, right? Like, I know that, like, that's a good way to get to people. And so, who knows? Maybe if I had a different realtor, maybe that would have been a shorter time frame, and I would have gotten more for it. Like, who knows? All right, any questions about that before I move on to the next one? So that's my baby. That's my baby house, the one that I cut my teeth on.
Would you do it again?
No, I would have wholesale. I would wholesale it, and I would have gotten it cheaper. Because I let them dictate the price, and I should have not.
So I missed it. Why didn't you rent it if it was worth?
So the reason I didn't rent it was because I had all my money tied up in it, and I was trying to replace an income, and I realized, whoa, foresight, I'm not going to be able to buy multiple properties or find more things like that. So it made sense for me to lose a little bit of money so I can have access to that capital. I have since done 40 plus deals since then, and if I didn't have access to that capital, I would not have been able to do some of the things that I did. But I would have gotten it cheaper, and I would have done a wholesale, or I would have bought it and immediately listed it as is online. But probably, honestly not. It doesn't fit my criteria anymore. Quirky properties. Like, I'm telling you, those quirky properties.
With little holes.
with those holes. Okay, but I did buy a property that has termite damage. It's one of my complicated deals I'm not going to break down. But it's a house that I have, and Mr. Leon's told me to tell this to the attorneys. He's like, if the termites Ryan, you've seen this house, if the termites let go of hands, the house is going to fall apart. And I'm telling you, it still has active termites. And I'm like, it's killing me to not rehab it while it's under litigation. And so I'm not going to, it was the first free property I got. I'll have to tell that story sometime. So this is Short Street. This was my first wholesale deal. Oh, I didn't look up, but it was 1,600 square feet. And SLIDELL. All right, so during that time, I was listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets because I was doing a lot of sweat equity in this house that was teaching me a lot of lessons. So I had a mentor who was doing a lot of things, and she was like, hey, if you ever come across deals, because I know you've got a lot of time and hustle, but not a lot of money, if you ever come across a deal, let me know, and I'll pay you a bird dog fee. So I was like, I learned about Bigger Pockets, so I started listening, and so I started learning about wholesaling. And so January of 2018, the end of January 2018, I started doing my first bit of marketing for wholesaling. Again, marketing is finding off-market, wholesaling is finding off-market properties at a discounted rate, and then you're flipping your position in that contract to another investor. So this was my first wholesale deal. So I'll tell you how I found it and everything, but I started marketing, and this was the first deal, end of January, beginning of February 2018, and I closed on this on Good Friday, so that's like March 30th of 2018. And y'all, it was a Good Friday, okay? I remember going and being like, okay, I had to get to the bank before it closed because I didn't want to hold that big of a check over a weekend. All right, so I found the deal, Driving for Dollars. How many of you guys know what Driving for Dollars is? Handful of you guys. So I was driving around. This is literally blocks from my house. And so I was just driving around, and I noticed, what did I notice about me? Bags of leaves on the side of the house that had been they did yard work 3 years ago, and they left it. And I saw that all stacked up, and there was toys randomly in the yard and stuff like that. So I just wrote down the address. Looked it up on the tax assessor's site, and sent a handwritten note to the owner saying like, look, I'm looking for properties in this area. If you're interested in a cash offer, I'll buy it as is. Give me a call, right? Something simple, right? The woman called me and was like, yeah, I'm interested. Like, tell me a little bit more about, you know, what you do. And she was like, look, I have not been in that house in 4 years. I'm like, tell me more. She said, well, I have an old coworker who's been renting it, but he's kind of taken me, I'm kind of carrying him on my back. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The market rent on this would have been like $1,200 to $1,300. He was getting it at $800 a month. $400 on the first and $400 on the 15th. What happens when your mortgage is more than $400, right? So she was carrying him, right? It was because she was I would say an accidental landlord, someone who wasn't being in a room like this trying to educate themselves. But they said, look, I kept my old house, moved into a new one, let me just rent it out. But she really didn't have, she was a good candidate for like a property management company, because she didn't really just have the backbone to say, you know, whenever he couldn't make it 1 month, like to pay, she could be like, I have bills, buddy, you know, and start the eviction process.
Was she local?
Local, yes. The after repair value of this property, ARV, you're going to hear that often, after repair value in the neighborhood, $140,000. This was roughly a spec house. It was completely renovated after Katrina, so it was in an AE flood zone. It was built up a little bit, and it's near, so this is off of Old Spanish Trail near, it's called Short Street, and it's near the interstate, and it's near where they were building, you know, Fremont, right? Like, so all of that's where you can access it. So it was completely renovated post-Katrina, and she's like, look, I was not legally married, so here's how I found it. Found it driving for dollars, and I sent it some mail, right? And she contacted me. Then, this was the motivation. She was not legally married to the person she was with for so long, and then they split up, but they didn't actually have a divorce settlement because they were never legally married. So they have 2 houses and 2 mortgages, and they're tied together, and they just want to be as far apart from each other as possible. So I said, look, well, what do you need to get for it? I asked her. You know, she's like, I'm done with this property. I want someone to buy it as is. I haven't been in it 4 years. I don't even know what it looks, and it just makes me sick. She just kept, I just want to be done with this property. I said, what do you need to get for it? She said, I have $60,000 is what I owe left on the mortgage, and I owe my ex 10. If you can get me 70, I'll sign wherever you need me to sign. At that point, I roughly knew that houses in the neighborhood fixed up or selling for that, so I'm like, all right, let's start. So I said, can you get me in there with a tenant? Yeah, so we arrange it. I don't want the tenant to know because I don't want him to back out, and then I'm like carrying it all 100% by myself without, you know, also carrying his half. But like, she didn't want stuff to happen with the tenant. She arranged for me to walk the house. Did not know that the tenant had a Great Dane. Literally, I could have rode him around the house. But it also meant like from here down, had some here down had pet dander, urine, other things like that. Pretty much, but for the most part, it wasn't bad. It was mostly cosmetic, right?
Wait, tell me how you went in inconspicuously, like did you post like the telephone repair person or something? Like how'd that work out? I need to know this.
So we told them, I think I was doing an inspection. I was there doing like an inspection or an appraisal or something like that.
He just makes it.
Yeah, usually I was like, look, just tell me what you told them, so I'm not going in there saying I'm with Clico and he thinks I'm with the appraisal company. You know what I mean? Like just tell me the story. I don't like so I like to shoot from the hip, and I don't like that, but a lot of times landlords are like, I don't want them to get any wind that I'm selling and then move out, right? So generally we go, what is the tell me what the storyline is, and I'll, you know. And look, I'll say like, look, just tell them I'm going there to do an inspection and see what might need to get fixed, right? That's about as honest as I can get. Now my license plate says house buyer, so like, I was like, man, you know what? Next time. All right, I got it under contract. $70,000. I told her when I called her after, I said, yes, ma'am, we can do that. And she said, you know, can you close in 30 days? I said, yes, ma'am. Her ex called me looked me up on my website, looked me up on social media. That was my first lesson. It was also my first deal, but it was my first lesson in how sellers, they do research on you. And they were like, oh, I know exactly who you are, this and this, and you managed a marina, you did this. I was like, you've been to my LinkedIn, haven't you? She's like, yes, I've been on your LinkedIn, I've been on your Facebook, I've been on this, that.
My wife was stalking.
They look,
I'm gonna get a report when I get home.
look,
You know who you're doing business with? I'll go in about 10 minutes, please.
and so they're like, the ex was like, I can't believe someone wants to actually buy this house. These are the words that are said. You're thinking I have a killer deal, right? Me too. But the ex is like, I can't believe someone's willing to buy that house. Like, oh my gosh, thank you. And I was like, okay. I thought I was gonna have to be the little lovely squirrel, like be the middleman, like get in between, because they didn't want to be in the same room as each other. That was complicated, but we figured that out. Also, lesson learned on this one, I had the seller dictated the title company because they used this title company before. Literally, the title company, I had to go to the door, I was knocking on the door, it's me again, like, because they would shut their door and their blinds, and I would see them peek. I'm like, I see you, and they're like, oh, it's Courtney. And so I'd be in there with their blinds closed. They're like, we're deciding who we want to do business with today. Literally said that. What? Yes. So I learned the importance. Like the deal almost got lost because of them, right? And I had used them before when I purchased my first deal, but I didn't experience that. So I was like, okay. All right. So I got another contract at $70,000. So being in my first deal, I just picked up my phone and I called someone. And I called the first person, it was a flipper. And I said, look, I've got this deal, here's the information, here's the relative comps, stuff like that. Is this something you're interested in? I'm offering it at $77,500. Okay? So my position in the contract was up for sale for $7,500. You need cash, you need to be able to close in 30 days. Is this something you're interested in? Yes, I want to go look at it. So we set up, and it looks at it, instantly walks it, says, yes, I'll take it. In 30 days, they close, and I get $7,500. I had less than 4 hours into that deal, and none of my money deployed except for some time, effort, and marketing monies, right? It was a good Friday, right? That day in March. This is when I learned the power of learning different real estate strategies. But here's the thing is, I gave value to that seller. At the closing table, the seller was hugging me. The ex was like, I can't believe someone wants to buy this. It took about 45 days. It took about 45 days, 15 days from the very first postcard I sent the seller. That was a really motivated seller. The first letter I sent them, they responded. And then so about 15 days from then, we got under contract. And then about 30 days from there, we closed. So some lessons I learned on there. So this is my first deal. This is something I'm going to work on this year too. You guys have my word on this. I'm trying to get better is that no one gets the deal until everyone's seen the deal. Because he was just the first person that I called, right? Meaning that there's so many of you guys who haven't heard about a deal from me recently, and it's not because I haven't been doing them. It's just because I've been so busy. It's just been picking up the phone and calling someone. But I'm building systems in place this year so that when I have a deal, it gets sent out to everyone. So the one I told you about earlier with Hammond, it's going to be, if you're on my cash buyers list, be looking. It's going to be hitting your inbox either tonight or tomorrow morning. And if you're not, add your card into the jar out there. The other thing is that anyone ever heard of something called a wholesale? A wholesale deal? It's a mixture between a wholesale, yeah you do, wholesale and retail. So what it is you're getting a property at wholesale price and then you're offering at a retail price. And what it is this is one that I know I left money on the table. I had it under contract for $70,000. Let me get my numbers here. $70,000. What I should have done. What it needed was, it needed a deep clean, and it could have been listed on the market. Because it maybe like some trim probably should have been like handled and the yard probably cleaned up. But honestly, it took the rehabbers like 2 weeks. and it should have taken them less than 2 weeks. And I think they spent like $15,000 or so, like to do the work. So I should have purchased it at this, take it down with private money, and did a deep, literally just a deep clean of the property, and I should have offered it. $115. House that's worth $140. Maybe you need to do some painting, maybe replace a little bit of trim here and there. Do you think that's a good deal that people would jump on? Realtor in the room, right? Realtor in the room. Would people get multiple offers at that price point? Because you have some equity, and everyone loves doing their, HGTV has everyone being, everyone's Joanna and everyone's Chip.
Amen.
So, let me talk to you about this. $1,500 to clean, $3,000 roughly in closing, $500 in utilities, $600 in vacancy insurance, $6,900 and at 6% of this price point. So, $12,500 plus lender cost. This would have been my expenses. So this is me, in hindsight, working this number. So 115 minus, so I did 70 plus the 12.5. Granted, there's some lender cost in there, but that just depends on how you structure that. So 82.5 versus 75. Did I leave money on the table?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the difference? Let's just say lender cost and some other things, $25,000. $25,000 versus $7,500. Did I leave money on the table?
Mm-hmm.
What is this? The difference between this is education and access to capital. Do you see that, right? For those of you who are finding these off-market deals, having access to capital and educating yourself, it changes the game. This year, we're taking down deals left and right doing this strategy this year. And you can't say they're not there on the Northshore because I just bought 2 in the last 30 days. And numbers, some numbers better than this, way better than this. And wait until they close because. And if you know of anyone, we got 2 of it. One of them just hit the market today in Macomb. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nice house. The other one's not done. So lessons on this one, like I said, I learned the hotel lesson, leaving money on the table, the education part. Any questions about this? The wholesale part, the hotel part, anything like that? Kevin?
What I see the biggest challenge is the tenant being in there. So what was the story behind the tenant?
He was a month to month, and because I think he knew he was really taking advantage of this friendship, he got out within the 30 days. He just agreed to move by then. She just had a heart charger with him that, hey, I'm selling it. Basically, I've been carrying you for too long. I'm cutting you off, type thing. And so he moved out by the closing.
Okay, so
That's not always the
delivered back
case.
in.
No.
Otherwise, if he's on a month to month, and they had no paperwork with like the lease, so he would have been on a month to month. And we're doing eviction in Slidell City Court right now. And we filed it last Tuesday. We put the paperwork last Tuesday. What was it? Yesterday or something like that. We found out tomorrow I have to go file the paperwork for eviction court within this month. So that's adding time, right?
Wait, back that up, what you did last Tuesday?
The 5-day notice, but the person in there is fighting the eviction.
So is that when they're supposed to come out Saturday?
Yeah.
How did they find it, Courtney?
How did I find
Have
it?
a lease file with the courthouse?
What?
Why are they finding it? How
The
did they
condo
find
one
it?
that I have fighting it, there's someone who professionally plays the system.
Yeah.
And so, they're like, you're literally gonna have to take me to court. You're literally gonna have to take, we went in there with police
But
officers,
if
they
they
have escort.
don't leave, the sheriff puts them out, you can hire somebody to put their stuff on the street.
So, okay, so maybe we can get with her, because in the city of Slidell, it's
Limits,
city,
so you
yeah.
didn't do it with the sheriff's office.
And then we have to go to court. And because she's fighting it, we have to go to court and get it ruled.
She'll still get it, it'll extend it about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
Yeah, I haven't.
January 30th is our court date.
I'll see you later.
That's like a bad AA. I'll see you there. Look guys, let me jump on to this last one. Let me jump onto this last one real quick, and then we'll kind of, because I know I'm getting close on time. Is this helpful for you guys?
Yes.
Okay, I know for me, I like seeing stuff like this because it's not just theory, right? It's application. All right, so this is Lynn Street. Look, for those of you on the live recording, you're not here, you don't get to see this. This is in Lacombe. This is 4-house package. If you go on my buyer's list, maybe you remember this. Okay. First of all, you go, whoo, 4-house package for $21,000. All right, guys, what this one is, a 4-house package on the same tax bill. It was on 1 acre in Lacombe. It was on an odd cul-de-sac type setting where it was an undeveloped street. Well, like in the sense where it was the only thing developed on the street, but it had an actual street. And at the very end, there's a cul-de-sac that had 2 stick houses, but they were older, and then 2 mobile homes, but all within the cul-de-sac. Okay. How did I find this deal? I sent mail to an unknown equity list that were absentee owners. So I looked with public record. I found people who it was not known with public record how much equity they had in the property, and they lived outside of the house. What I found was 2 siblings in California who owned this property. They inherited it from their father, and it's been like 10 years since they've been to Louisiana. And so this is the fun part. They hadn't been since their dad passed, and they inherited it. Their cousin was like supposed to be keeping up with the property. So you might find my cousin there. When I got there, I found 15 people. It was one of those things where I was like, not ball out here. So I got out acting like I'm doing inspections, like all this stuff, and I'm like counting how many people I found living in the properties. So I took some pictures in incognito, right? I took some pictures, and then as soon as I leave, I call her. I said, I just sent you some pictures. Your cousin's not just keeping up. Either he's the landlord or someone else is the landlord. You've got families living in these houses. She was like, shut that door. Like, he lied to me. All this, I mean, she was so mad because she's so far. And so I was like, look, I want to do right by you. My very first thought is, do you have any idea who these people are? Second of all, liability. Because your name's tied to this property, but what if something, what if something happens? We want to sell, we want to sell yesterday. Like, that was ended up being the conversation. I said, look, this is not, like, can I get access into these? And so I go and I knock, trying to get access, right, to see the condition, how many beds, how many bathrooms, how do you run comps if you don't know bed and bathrooms, right? I go in there and they're like they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. So I couldn't get in, so it was sight unseen, unknown. But I knew I had a deal, right? So I basically at that point, I don't like sight unseen, I don't have the stomach for it. So I took land value, I looked at land comps, and I kind of just gave it just a little bit above land comp, like land value, okay? So then I shopped it out to my buyer. I got it under contract for $21,750. As soon as I sent that text, here's the thing, you should ask them what they want because I sent this number by text and she sent back immediately sold. Like, where do I sign? I was like, I probably offered too much. But hey, you know what? So then I found out, I found out some information and I sent it to my buyer's list. I sent out a email blast and I got it under contract. Someone bought me out for $35,000, so that's $13,250, right? $250 was going to be my assignment, the wholesale fee. Don't abbreviate. So, good deal, huh? Okay, $35,000. To be honest, I actually got it below land. That 35 is still near the comps for about an acre in that neighborhood. Fun fact, tons of new construction. Anyone know where Berry Todd is in Lacombe? This is right near Berry Todd. It's on Lynn Street. You'll go find the cul-de-sac. You're gonna go look. This was the deal that we bring it to title. I have a happy buyer. Got happy sellers. The buyer knew he was buying it sight unseen, that he was gonna have to start eviction day one, but he felt like he was getting a deal. He was gonna renovate them, keep them as rentals, right? The potential on, I kind of rolled out a lot of scenarios with him. Go through title, we find out that those two siblings only own 97%. They have a conspiracy theory galore aunt who owns 3%. So my title guy came to me. He's like, "Courtney, we have a problem." I'm like, "Okay." And he said, "Your sellers don't own all of it." I said, "Okay, let's talk about some options." So I ended up calling the aunt who owns the 3%. What happened? Back in the day, her dad was keeping up with the property, so all the siblings and his mom, they donating their portion to him because he was paying all the expenses and keeping it up. So either he bought them out or they donated it to him. It just looks like they donated it to him. Everyone except for her. But that was like 20 plus years ago, right? Well, they didn't know the whole backstory of how their dad got the whole, And so when we found it, we found her information. She was up in, I think, Pineville, Louisiana. I called her up. Miss Shirley. I remember her name. And she, I know I own that. And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, hey, well, actually, the two main owners are actually selling. So, we're going to be buying the property. Congratulations, you're going to be getting some money soon." "Oh, no, honey, I'm not selling anything. Like, I'm not signing nothing. My mama should have never donated. She should have donated. I should really have her percentage, and my sister's, like, that was not right. Like, living in this whole," she's like, "I need to call the judge." I was like, "Honey, I don't have the judge's note." Like, she's like, "Something's not right here. People, like, did me wrong. I need to call the judge tomorrow." I'm like, "That's not how this works," but okay. So she's fighting. I said, "Okay, well, look, I'd already talked with them. They want you to pay. You haven't been paying the property taxes. They want you to contribute. If you're going to hold up the sale, they want you to contribute for your 3%, right?" No. I'm not doing it, like, no. My nieces and nephews are living there. I said, "We found the landlord," ding, 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 ding. Like, we found the landlord, right? Long story short, she threatened me, she threatened the attorney, and then her son, her grown son, was threatening us. And we're like, okay, she's not going to sell. In the state of Louisiana, you cannot force someone to maintain ownership of a property. This is commonly seen in inheritances, like when you inherit a property or when you have a divorce. So it's called a partition, and this should be your last method, right? So we told her, she's like, "You can't make me sign nothing, nothing's getting sold." I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but someone can make you." His name is the judge, the one you're going to call. And what they can do is they can force you to either buy out the 97%, which, honey, you're not in a good leverage position. It's not 50-50, right? You have to buy them out, or they can either do a private sale or a public sale. If you've ever been to the public auction, the foreclosure auction, they have one tomorrow morning here in St. Tammany. These partitions, when they go public, they get sold through that. So we had the fun opportunity of explaining that to her. I said, "Ma'am, we don't want to do this. Can I give you," I remember she was going to get like $2,000, because, look, 21.75, like 3% of that, she was going to get like $2,000, right? I said, "Look, would $5,000 do it for you? Maybe can we sweeten the pot some?" No. I'm not, open to this, right? So the buyer still wanted it. And I said, "Look, so this is technically the exit strategy on this is it's a wholesale deal that I solved creatively. At this point, most people would have said, you don't have a deal, right? Walk away, no deal here. Sorry, next time." What did we do? I renegotiated. I explained to my buyer, my attorneys did, and I told him, "Go consult your own attorneys." I explained to him what a partition is, where you go through the legal process to force someone to either buy you out, or you go through a public sale or a private sale, the one I just explained. And I said, "If you want, you can buy the 97, I'll negotiate down, and you can buy the 97% and pay the attorney." So we talked over what that process looked like. The attorney consulted on what that would look like, the expenses, and the timeline. And, the risk and all those things. So then he said, "I'm down. It's still going to be a good deal, because if I can get it at a cheaper price point, I'm even happier," right?
And this is your buyer.
My buyer. Not every buyer wants to buy 97%, right? I got it down to $11,000. My assignment fee went up a little bit. And he got it for $26,000. And he got this amount. 97. He bought the 97% for $26,000. And the attorney fees was going to be, I believe, around $2,000 to $4,000, and it was going to take about 6 months. But on day one, he could file for eviction, so he could start the process while the court process was dragging on. I believe the sellers were happy, the buyer was happy. I believe right now he's in, if I haven't mistaken, he has an offer from someone living in the complex, like compound, whatever you want to call it, to buy out his 97%. I think it was 60,000 range. I remember 25 to 35,000 is what an acre was going for back there. So he's got it at the land, like he got it for, at a good price, right? So,
What about the crazy ant? The 3%.
So that's one of his exit strategy. So he understood that his options were that he had to deal with her to get clear title. So his options were to do the petition, but someone came forth that was living there willing to buy his 97% out and then deal with the problem themselves, right? At least that's the last I heard. But he knew he was buying a process, right? Like not a complete package deal. So this one, some lessons learned is the creative solutions to title issues like petitions. Get a solid attorney in your corner. This is difficult. This is something that I don't recommend just anyone just jumping out and doing and like saying, oh, Courtney's talking about, let me go and partition everything and do, look, I'm in the middle of another petition right now, and look, they are headaches, and these are my long deals, okay? So this solved a problem for the seller, and the buyer still got a great deal. Let me say this. I got a bigger assignment fee than the original contract. Why? I brought value to the marketplace. This deal would have fallen down. Most of the time, this would have been a dead deal at the 97-3 split, right? Because I brought value to the marketplace, and I solved, the bigger the problem you solve. For example, if you know how to change batteries in a watch, if you know how to change batteries in like a Casio, you get paid, because that's pretty generic. You get paid well. But if you know how to work on a Rolex, you get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace, right? So this came from, I got paid for the bigger the problem I solved and the value I brought based on education. This was purely an education factor, right? Any questions about this one? Yes?
Just in general, when, as an investor, wholesale or whatever, do you do your title? After you get the deal, like I said, if you can drive down, and I know you look at the tax assessor's office, if you can go on local court, but when do you put that extra time to know? I mean, you can find mortgages and everything.
Sure. So
Put that extra in.
I love playing in public records. But it is time consuming and you get caught in the weeds. So here's the thing, if the property, look, I just know how to ask some pretty pointed questions to sellers. And when I start like hearing things about like, multiple owners and multiple like inheritance, that's when things can start to get gray. If I start hearing stuff like that, but I pay to have access to public records, and I actually do a little bit of preliminary title for every deal I do, for the most part. But I generally ask questions from the sellers. How much do you own your mortgage? Do you have a mortgage? Do you own it outright? Are there any other liens attached to this property? Is there anything else circling the drain that's going to attach to this property? We've had those conversations. Those have been fun. Well, I didn't pay for this, so maybe something soon, right? And so I just have heart. Look, I'm dealing with distressed sellers, with distressed properties. There's usually a lot of liens. I could go on and on about some deals. What I've started doing is I've actually started specializing in some stuff like this. I enjoy it, maybe a little too much. It's more like playing chess for me. Someday whenever I close out some of these bigger ones that have been taking me over a year, I have 3 properties that have taken me over a year to do. When I finish with those and get the payout that I get a check from those. I'll break those down for you guys at some point too. Many of you guys have heard about my lien, the house with 1.4 million in liens. That's only a $300,000 house. That was the free house I got. I am now working toward a clear path toward profit on that house, and I only have $2,500 into it. Things like those, and that's handling liens. So back to your question, it is learn to ask good questions and either outsource it, like for someone to run the title, but ultimately it's going to happen during the title process. Always, always, always buy title insurance. That is something I've learned by dealing with complicated title properties is when you don't think you need it is a lot of times when you need it the most. It is an expense unless you have the skill set. So I've taken it upon myself, but one of my mentors was an abstractor. So I learned through them. So it is an expense. So you can't go and do that at every, order title. It's a few $100s sometimes to do a title search. And so you can't go do that on every deal you're just looking at. So learn to ask pointed questions, and then you can go to public record, the courthouse.
Is it kind of like wasting time, like you said, you know how to do it and everything, if you've seen the properties when you're driving and everything, to go and look all that up beforehand without even reaching out? Or
I don't do any backlog report until I know this person's a viable seller who's going to sell to me, because otherwise I'd just be spinning my wheels. Because there are plenty of people who need to sell who don't want to sell. So even if they have all the boxes checked that they need to sell, does that make sense?
So still get it under contract.
I can still get it under contract.
You can get out.
Absolutely, I can still pay. That's why you need to have a solid contract. That if there's stuff that comes up, that's a problem. You know what that looks like. Let me finish up. I know we're past time. So obviously I've made some mistakes. And look, this is me being honest with you guys because I want you guys to learn from my mistakes and not repeat them, just like I try to not repeat them, right? So how do you minimize making mistakes? As we think about 2020 in hindsight looking back, how do we minimize these? One of the biggest ways is self-development, okay? I'm a big fan. I'm becoming a bigger fan of Jim Rohn. Anyone know who Jim Rohn is? R-O-H-N. Jim Rohn is the king of self-development. He's got a handful of quotes. It says, formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. He also said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I'll tell you this. If you're the smartest person in the room, get out of that room. Okay? I'm serious. Get around. If you want to learn some things this year, if you want to take some action, get in rooms where you're not the smartest person. So learn from other people. It's super easy to learn from other people's mistakes because they all talk about it through podcasts, books, YouTube videos, conferences, networking events like this. Look, I'm on a journey. I did this last year. I'm doing it again this year. I'm reading 40 books this year. If you want to join me, jump on Instagram. You can see which books I'm reading. Look, follow along. Whether that's 10 books for you for the year or 40, whatever. You might beat me. Get 100. Good job. Whatever that looks like. But on the REIA website, we've got the REIA websites out there in our card. It's LANorthshoreREIA.com/resources. There's a resource page on there. I need to re-update it, but it has a ton of books, free podcasts. I just filtered a whole bunch of stuff that I've learned from. Jump on there. The other thing is, Jim Rohn says, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenges, wish for more wisdom. Some of the wealthiest people I know want more challenges. Because the bigger, a lot of times, the bigger the problems is because you're leveling up, right? One of the biggest things to minimize making mistakes is learn to pivot and adjust. So that first wholesale deal where I left that money on the table, pivot and adjust, right? I learned more about wholesaling, got access to private capital, and built a criteria. The first deal I learned, pivot, adjust, make a criteria, learn to not buy those quirky ones again, or whatever that looks like. Review your actions, guys. Go over what you're doing. Don't just take a ton of action and not look back and you need to take total of what you're doing. So make some quarterly and yearly goals and let other people speak into your plans. So I joined a mastermind, but getting into groups like this, you're around like-minded people, it's really hard to call your baby ugly when you love it a lot. But if someone else is like, because in real estate, it's easy to have emotion tied to a property, like you fall in love with properties. And you might be thinking, this is a killer deal, I love this property, because I've been spending so much time running the numbers. But then someone looks into it who's not emotionally attached, not biased, and they're like, no, this is a bad deal, right? Have someone speak into, get someone that you can be that can be a soundboard for you. Jim Rohn says, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. At the same time, failure is not a single cataclysmic event. You don't fail overnight. Instead, failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. Let me repeat that. Failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. So you guys, hindsight is a powerful tool as you get into real estate investing, or you look to do your next deal, whether it's your first deal, your next deal, your 500th deal. Hindsight is a powerful tool when it's yielded properly and used. So I'm going to ask you guys, look at your 2019. How can your 2020 be better? So look at how the action you took, or the lack of action, or whatever, maybe some errors in judgment that you took in 2019, and how can 2019 be better? Look, if real estate investing is a part of your goals for 2020, I want to encourage you to attend any of the 2 to 3 meetups we have here. Not because I care how many people we have in this room, but because real estate can really change our lives. And so getting in this room around like-minded people, it encourages you week after week, month after month to take that action. And it becomes, there's people in here, spend time outside of these events with the people in here. Go have lunch, go hang out, do whatever. Because what you're doing is you're surrounding yourself with people who have similar goals, like-mindedness, right? So that's all I've got for you guys. I do want to go ahead. Who here is, go ahead. Who here has a goal for 2020? Raise your hand and tell me. Hey, shout it out. Who was the first one?
Buy 8 properties.
Buy 8 properties. Have you read this book yet? Yep. Okay, you get to read it now. Look, y'all, buy 8 properties. Hey, look. If you're selling properties, you better find him. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for coming. A few things. January 21st is the Real Estate 101, Real Estate Investing 101 in SLIDELL. And then February 11th, Questar IRA's coming. Check out our table out front. Look, future reference, there's a door here, and then when you go out here, there's a hallway that goes out to another door. These 2 doors are free access to the parking lot. Future reference, park on this side of the parking lot. Okay?
What's the name of the book you just gave away?
Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's about how businesses go from being a good business, good company, to a great company. What's the separating factors? Thank you guys. Have a great night. I'm looking forward to 2020. And you guys have a good one, okay? Thank you. I'll let you know when that comes in, okay? I've been dealing with it. I have during So, I've been running title and stuff, and I've been seeing I think it was like that in the beginning, but now it seems.
I'm trying to find one too. How about I want? Okay, me too. We're just gonna start, right?
Information, reading black stuff,
Yeah. My own Achilles heel is trying to solve it by learning more information. One more book. Right. learning how to run the numbers and trying to figure out like what my criteria is, what kind of property I want, and what I can take down with my own financing or my bank. Self-employed, so like my financial structure is much different than two employees.
I saw some rules that they don't even ask for W-2s, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there are some things out there. Yeah, good say. You know what, I'm a pros and cons, and whatever you qualify for.
Right.
Yeah. You guys late to coming in here yet?
Slidell.
Yeah? Okay. Gotcha. I'm here local. So I went going to Slidell on the last round of meetings, so now you're
made it easy, right?
Yeah, this is easy for me, exactly. Let's just keep in Slidell.
Yeah.
Good luck to you guys.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
We'll see you at the next one.
All righty. Oh no, I was saying one.
So, you're looking at this house, and go outside, they so they want to go with that.
That's me doing my homework. So you want to do my homework, just learning. What I technically had a lot of stuff. I'm not.
I prefer that That's literally gonna be, that's literally me. I have like 4 shoes of these in my, like if I could have every I think the one, but my partners have, okay, but my partners have one where whenever they file, it shows it, like he can be saying it writing, but it shows it, so I don't know, that's matter, but they have that.
Yeah, you say more money in real estate, so just going on searching, you know, just real action, you know, so are you saying foreclosure aspect?
Nice meeting you, see you.
I'll be done. Alright, so, they have, so this is what I say.
Of course,
Because when it comes down to that, it's like, is that not everyone has a personality? Like, if it takes you hours, and it's like, I'm not saying no,
so it's, I built, a nice, I call it my
what I found here is a try by try. I now have someone like, so I've started, I know that's something, a lot of things like that. I can't have it. I hate it, but like the reality is, I have how many? I probably have 25 years old. Whatever it is, I've had to learn as a guess that's what I'm looking at the stress out.
It's for buying old ways.
It's located in front, and then you have to contract for the ground, so it's like,
Just, you know, making sure as far as everything, my material, all that, you know, like I'm just like, you know, little things like that, you know, it's communication and everything.
and so just thinking about it right now, when we first trial on, look, there is one going on.
And so, just seeing what it all looks like, so, yeah, that's really different. Come across the same region, like I said, I get the ask, I get the whole picture of it, it's just studied it too much to understand all the working parts and all the different, that's why I love it, is there's more than one way to solve the problem, make something happen, so,
So right now, that's the plan.
Look, if you ever come across
I'll
something,
find some, like, you know, I'll find it, you know, so, yeah, and that's absolutely, especially, just being,
because look at it, it's hard to build up plan, when you start out, because also you want to establish your team, you want to establish, you get stuff, and then
you know, establish, like, relationships with, title attorney, and like, it's that. Done excellent with that, and as far as getting money into sellers, potential sellers, and that's what the raises and so on. But yeah, they, that's.
You're only getting 30%.
Or somebody.
I'll miss some good stuff.
Beginning,